When I was 6 years old, I almost died at a Catholic school field trip. This is the story of my childhood near-death experience. I was raised Catholic in a small town in Canada. I don't want to dox myself, but this small town is in the coastal region of British Columbia. The coastal element is very important to the story. So I went to a normal elementary school, but every Wednesday after school I went to what we called prep, also known as catechism, also known as church school. From this point on, I'll be referring to it as catechism because that's what's easiest. Catechism was usually in the basement of the church hall, but today there was something special planned, and that special something was a field trip. What I didn't know about this field trip is that it would almost kill me. So this is where the fact that I lived in coastal BC becomes important. My tiny hometown is right on the waterfront, and from the docks in the town it's about a 15-minute water taxi ride to a very small island nearby. I'm going to call this small island Evil Island for the sake of the story. Only around 50 to 80 people live on this island year-round. There's no stores or services available on this island. It's mainly a place people go to for camping. But back to the field trip. Every grade in catechism would be going on a day trip to Evil Island together. This might sound like a lot of kids, but it was an after-school catechism program in a small town made up of mostly non-religious people. So all the catechism grades put together was only like 20 kids, and not everyone even went on the trips. There's probably only around 15 kids there. Or maybe closer to 10. So around 10 kids plus 2 or 3 adults, I'd guess. We took a small boat belonging to one of the adults to Evil Island instead of taking a water taxi. It was one of those boats that has a small living area inside. Anyway, after our short boat ride, we arrived at Evil Island. This is where the events that would lead up to my near-death experience started to play out. When we arrived, we did some activities or played some games with the adults, I can't quite remember what, and then they let us kids run free and play in the forest while they set up lunch. I was quite a nervous kid, and the forest was a very scary place for me. But I was with a bunch of other children, some as much as 5 years older than me, so what could go wrong? We started playing tag. While running around the forest, I realized that I didn't know how to get back to the clearing where the adults were preparing lunch at. But that's okay, the other kids seemed to know and I was with them. Well, I was kind of with them. We were playing tag, so I couldn't be too near them, otherwise they would tag me or I'd tag them or something. I was getting nervous. What if I got lost? I didn't want the other kids to leave my sight, but the children were getting increasingly spread out. It was getting harder and harder for me to keep the kids in my line of sight. They were running faster and faster as we played tag and getting more and more out of view as we all became engulfed in the bushes. Still, the other kids seemed to know where we were somehow. I had a rough idea of the direction from which we came, but it didn't feel like enough to find my way back on my own. All the other kids had slipped off into other parts of the bushes just out of my sight. All except for one boy who was around 5 years older than me. I tried to make my way towards him and the group of kids I could hear just ahead. But that's when things took a turn for the worst. The adults called us in for lunch. Immediately I could hear all the kids take off running, and the only boy in my line of sight ran with them. Everyone bolted to the lunch line, and I had no hope of keeping up. The boy vanished from my view into the forest. I was all alone, or so I thought. I heard sticks cracking and bushes rustling. Was it a bear? A ghost? A scary stranger? But when I looked, I saw it was none of those things. It was another kid a couple months younger than me running in a different direction, taking his own route to get back to the clearing. In that moment, I had a split-second decision to make. Do I go in the direction the older boy had disappeared into the bushes and hope for the best, or do I follow the younger boy while I still see him so I won't be alone? I was very scared of being in the forest alone, so the decision was clear. The younger boy was about to disappear into the bushes. I didn't want to be alone, so I decided to follow him. This is the choice that would almost kill me. The boy ran through the forest as fast as he could. I did my best to keep up, but I wasn't a very athletically gifted or nimble child, and he already had a head start on me. I was able to keep up just enough to keep him in my sights. Suddenly he stopped running. He had gotten to a cliffside. He would need to scale across the side of the cliff in order to get to the other side. If you look at the screen now, I'll show a drawing of the layout so it's less confusing. Honestly, this drawing might make it more confusing. I don't remember exactly what it looked like, but here's like a rough idea of kind of what it looked like. The green is just like the vegetation that was growing off the sides. The red shows his pathway. As he stood at the cliff's edge, he wondered for a moment if he was making the right decision. I could see it on his face. But it was only a moment. Before I could even get to the cliff's edge with him, he decided to start climbing. He started pulling himself across the cliff's edge using the bushes and small trees that were growing out of the side of it. He got to the other side quickly, almost expertly, and took off. I remember thinking, this kid's a year younger than me. If he can do it, so can I. Though the funny thing about that was, I was actually born at the very end of the year and he was born at the very beginning of the year, so he was like a month, maybe 2 younger than me. Not that any of that matters, because the real problem isn't that he was younger than me. The real problem is that he's agile enough to climb across that cliff easily, and I wasn't. But I couldn't turn back now. I'd be more lost than before. And I was more scared of being in the forest alone than I was scared of falling to my death, apparently. I decided to follow in his footsteps and pull myself across the cliff face using the shrubs and small trees growing out of the side. The cliff was essentially straight, almost perpendicular to the ground, from what I remember. From what I remember, it looked like it was around a 3-story drop, and what lay below was a beach covered in large rocks. As I climbed across the cliff, I did exactly what I'd seen him do. I grabbed the trees and the bushes. Everything was going fine, until it wasn't. I somehow ended up in a spot where I couldn't reach any trees or bushes. I was losing my grip on the bush I was hanging onto, and this is when I almost made the decision that could have killed me. I remember this so vividly. I was looking at the rocks below, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna make it, and if it was worth it to even try. I thought maybe I should just let go, fall onto the rocks, and I might just break my ankles, but not die. That would be okay. I remember noting that although the cliff was nearly flat, there was the slightest angle to it. I thought maybe that instead of just falling, I would slide down and just sort of land on my feet. Maybe I wouldn't even break my ankles. Maybe it just kind of hurt. No, I would probably break my ankles. I knew that at least, but I was willing to accept it. I thought about it more. I could just let go. I might be okay. I almost did it. I almost let go. But one thought kept ringing through my brain. What if the fall is high enough to kill me? I knew I might not just slide down the cliff like I imagined, and if that didn't happen, then I could easily crack my head open on the rocks. I hung there deliberating, not sure what to do. Finally, after hanging there for what felt like forever, I decided the risk wasn't worth it. I did not want to die. I looked back up at the cliff I was holding onto, my hands gripped around the bush that grew out of the side. There was nothing in my reach, nothing I could grab onto. But then I noticed it. A small, tiny sapling. Or is it called a sapling when it's a bush? Because it wasn't a tree. It was a salal bush, a baby one, just starting to grow. I knew if I grabbed it and used it to pull me up, it would definitely break from my weight because it was very small. But if I could pull myself up for just a second before it snapped and grab the more mature salal bush growing above it, it was worth the risk. I reached up as high as I could. I thought I wouldn't be able to reach it, but somehow I was able to just grab the end of it. I grabbed onto the baby salal and pulled myself up. Immediately it started snapping from my weight, but all I needed was a couple seconds. I grabbed the mature salal growing above it and used that to pull myself up, just as the baby one started to snap. Then, using the mature salal, I was able to hoist myself up off the cliff face and onto the cliff's edge. I had done it. I was safely on the other side of the cliff. From between the trees, I could see the clearing where everyone was getting their lunch. I calmly walked over to join them. I was so relieved I had survived. I then went on to forget it happened and did not mention it to any of the catechism teachers because I guess I didn't feel like it was worth noting. I'd survived, so who cares now? Years later, I remembered what happened and told the story to my parents, who were very shocked they never heard about that. I think the best decision I've ever made was not to let go and fall on those rocks. If I had given up right then and decided to just see if I'd survive, I might not have. I did go back to Evil Island one more time after this, but it wasn't for around 6 more years. It was when I was 12. My school had an annual grade 7 camping trip. Not the catechism school, my regular elementary school. And funnily enough, while I was there the second time, my friends almost died. And I could have kind of died if the situation had been different as well. It's hard to explain. But if you want to know about that near-death instance of my friends and sort of not really me, let me know. Because I can do a part 2 on this and talk about the other near-death experience on Evil Island. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm gonna try and do way more long-form videos. I really need suggestions. Like, I just want to know what you guys want to see, so please leave me comments telling me if there's anything you would want me to make a video about. And yeah, thanks for watching.